So we're going to give a presentation. There's about 4 of us, 4 of those college counselors. So we're doing a presentation. Just kind of ins and outs of what to expect for the next couple of years, what we do, Xavier, and then tips and advice for them.
Thank you.
Folks, thanks for coming out. If you have not grabbed a packet of information from that fine young blue sweater gentleman in the back over there, he will, if you raise your hand, he will bring you the pack you need. If you've got it, we'll cover all that during our time. We'll get going in about 5 minutes, but thank you all for coming. Appreciate it.
started, just a little housekeeping, just to make sure you have a copy of the slides. And we also are providing you with a handout, 2 handouts actually, about standardized testing. So there should be 2 of those and a timeline. So as long as everyone has all of those, we're good. So we're going to go ahead and get started. On behalf of the college guidance team here at Xavier, I'd like to welcome you to our, we call it our Planning for College Night, or Freshman and Sophomore Parent Information Night. Thank you all for coming. So my name is Molly Quinn, and I have my entire team here this evening, who you will be hearing from later on. Laura, Tom, and Jimmy, and yeah, they're throughout the room. You'll be hearing from them. But as you can see, we all have many years of experience in college counseling. And I think what's also cool, and we'll have more by the time your sons are seniors, and I think what's really cool is that we all have some different experiences and perspectives. Laura worked in higher ed, in college admissions. Jimmy is a former Xavier student, so he can bring that student perspective, and we all work very closely together. When your son is a junior, he will be assigned a specific college counselor, but just know that we all work together as a team. One person who's not on here, and you may, she works behind the scenes, she's our assistant to the college counseling office, Melissa Cassidy. Her name and email may sound familiar because she also supports the athletics office, but she supports our office in many ways, which is really great because it allows us to have more FaceTime with students. So if you get emails from her, just Melissa Cassidy, just so you know. So I know it's hard to believe that you're here learning about the college application process. I'm sure for many of you, you're still acclimating to having a high school student, but our goal tonight is not to overwhelm you or give you a long list of things that you need to go home and do. We just want to give you an overview. We want to give you a timeline, hopefully give you some really manageable things that you can take home and start thinking about so that you're not caught off guard when the process does formally begin. So you and your son selected Xavier, or chose to come to Xavier because, for many reasons, but probably because it is a college preparatory high school. So that's really at the center of the Xavier education, among many other values. But the college piece is everywhere, and it's not just in the academic preparation. It's students can walk by our office and see where seniors are getting into college. So we have a lot of signage about college. Their teachers are constantly talking about where they went to college. Their classrooms are decorated with college banners. Alumni frequently come back and talk about their college experiences. So college is in the everyday life of a student here at Xavier. And we don't just say that, the numbers show it. So 99% of Xavier students for many years have attended 4-year colleges, so the proof is in the numbers here. So just know that, by selecting Xavier and by being here, by sending your son here, and your hopes for him to attend college, you are here in the right place. So just wanted to start off with that message. And we have our own department philosophy, and I think the important thing here is that the college process is student-driven. So your son will be the one taking the lead on his process, and that's what we are constantly telling them. And a little bit more about this later, but the components of the college application are something that's built year to year. So it's really a thoughtful process. It's not something that's just like haphazardly we do with them in senior year. It's something, like I mentioned, that we start early and it's talked about often and is built over multiple years. So we have a really good structure in place, and I've worked at another school, we know a lot of other people in college counseling, and I think that this is a really good model. We've seen that this really works. So as you know, your son has been assigned a guidance counselor, and in his junior year, he will be sort of transitioned over to his college counselor. And together we work, we will work to make that transition seamless. So for now, he's working with a guidance counselor, but the work formally will begin with a college counselor in his junior year. And the point there is that he will have his own specific college counselor, and our role as college counselors is really just to work with them on the college process. So we find that, the attention and help is just a lot more personalized and individualized at that point. How many people in the room is it their first time, will be their first time going through the college process? And maybe the first time at Xavier, if you have daughters or other children. Okay, so like I said, we just want to give you an overview tonight, and we step back and put ourselves in your shoes, because we do this every year, and it is a very, the process goes the same every year, and so it can become kind of like automatic for us, but we just wanted to step back and give you some concrete things. So we will meet with your son throughout the second semester of junior year, like I said, so that will be a regular meeting that is scheduled, it's on his schedule. And then we will also meet with them regularly in the first semester of their senior year. So they will have a full year of meetings with their guidance counselor, and that's in groups, but then it's also individually. So they will have individually scheduled times during their free periods where they'll meet with us to discuss the college process and get to know each other. Excuse me. So that we can help them through the process, and we'll write them a letter of recommendation, more to come on that, but just so you know, the work formally begins in the junior year. But we are always here to answer parent questions, so our office is always open, so after tonight or at any point if questions arise, just because the work doesn't really start until junior year, we're still always here to answer questions and be a resource, whether that's a phone call or an appointment or an email. And the process really works well if we all work together as a team, so we found that, and this is a theme that we'll talk about a lot tonight, but communication is really essential, and just, that's something that we really work together on. So we work with the student, we work with the parents, we all work together as a team. Our hope is that your son is going home and talking to you about what's going on in the college process, and then they're filling us in. So there's a constant ring of communication that goes on, and we really reinforce that. So at the end of sort of the day, it all boils down to really 5 main components in a college application, and we're going to dive deep into each one of these. So I'm just here to sort of start this off and talk about each one. So there are 5 things that will go into the college application that the colleges will use to evaluate your son. So that is the Xavier transcript, his standardized test scores, which can either be the SAT or the ACT, his extracurricular involvement, a personal statement, or what others may call like a college essay, so that's a 650-word essay, which we'll talk about, and letters of recommendation. So, we can put it up as 5 things, but each one has a little bit more about it. So starting with the transcript. The transcript is important because it shows a lot of things. Obviously, it is his record of his academic performance here at Xavier. It allows colleges to evaluate him within the context of Xavier. It will show each course that he's taken, beginning in his freshman year, with the year-end cumulative average of the course. Each grade will also be averaged cumulatively, so at the end of his freshman year, if you're a freshman parent, you haven't seen any grades yet, but at the end of his freshman year, he will have a GPA. Sophomore year, he'll have a GPA, and those all average together to get your 6th semester cumulative average. By the time a student applies to college here, they will also have a set of first quarter grades or first semester grades, depending on the timeline that they choose to follow, which we don't need to really get into all of that, but there's some early action, there's some earlier deadlines, and that is something to consider, that there may be some senior year grades factored into the evaluation as well. And the GPA, the transcript also shows trends in grades from year to year. So you can start off freshman year with a GPA and you can either have an upward trend or you can have a downward trend. It also shows the types of courses that a student chooses to take. I know there hasn't been that much choice in the curriculum yet, but from year to year there will be more opportunities to carve out your own path as a student at Xavier and decide which courses you'd like to take. So colleges will be paying attention to that, which courses students chose to take, the rigor or the level of courses they chose to take. So honors classes and AP classes fit into that, and then also electives as well. So I appreciate a good visual, so I thought that this would be helpful to show you. Looks a little look blurry on my screen, but so here is actually a real transcript of a Xavier student that I just pulled from my files, and I'm not here to evaluate the transcript or to go through each grade, but what I hope to show you is just that each transcript sort of tells a story and this is what the colleges are seeing, right? So this is what the colleges are using to evaluate, the first thing that they are seeing to evaluate a student. So you will see that this student, you can see his trend from freshman year to sophomore year to junior year. If it's not too small, you can also see that by junior, is it too small? Sorry, but I'll explain it. But by junior year, he decided to take an AP or 2 AP courses. He was potentially eligible for some honors courses, but maybe thought about it with his family, discussed it, or and decided not to take it in his sophomore year. But by junior year, he had upped his rigor. And the other thing to pay attention to is the types of courses he decided to take. So he had an interest in technology and computer science, so he chose to take AP computer science in his junior year, and he excelled in that. And then by senior year, he was taking a robotics class and a game design class, as well as physics and intro to calculus. So I think that shows like tells a nice story. Between his junior and senior year, he took a summer program that was related to computer science. So he really, it was a thoughtful process in terms of what classes he decided to take. He probably had some conversations at home when it came time to think about taking those AP courses. And at the end of the day, when colleges evaluate that, his essay is also about his desire to study technology, computer science in college. So if possible, it's nice to have, if your son has an interest like that, for the transcript to tell a story and to have a neat package like that. But it's also, every transcript is different. And I think the important thing here is just to, when you do get those course selections, and you'll get a pamphlet of courses that are available, and they will have prerequisites, and just to have a conversation at home, just to be thinking about it, so that you're not sort of just going through and taking classes and just moving up from level to level without really giving it some thought. So not to say that you need to strive for this if you're looking at these grades and thinking, oh, my son doesn't have these grades. The point was not to put up numbers. It was more to just show you that it is a thoughtful process, and that colleges do look for trends from year to year. So there will be some time for questions at the end. So I'm going to turn it over to Laura, and we're going to start talking about standardized testing.
Wow, that is a bright light. Is this on? Wait. There we go. Yes, okay, great. Okay, hi everybody, I'm Laura Amagon, one of the college counselors, and I get to do the testing part of tonight. which is actually something I'm excited to talk about because I think that the testing portion can often cause the most anxiety, and I don't think it has to. And I just want to give you some framework to understand the testing, mainly because the testing is, we have the PSAT here at Xavier for sophomores and juniors. So freshman parents who haven't started it, they haven't started it yet. How many sophomore parents do we have? Okay, so your sons have officially taken an actual test. They took the sophomore PSAT and the juniors take it the middle of October, okay? And I think that kind of starts the benchmark of anxiety around the testing. Mainly because it's just really hard to know for a lot of these schools like how they use it. So I just want to start with a little bit of a framework around how they use it, what the testing means, and just kind of how you can start thinking about it. So it's called standardized testing for a reason. It is the measure, the standard measure by which colleges can look at students who come from thousands of different high schools with different grading systems, different GPA systems, different coursework, honors APs, IBs, electives, dual credit courses with colleges, right? Like there's just so many curriculums out there at high schools that the testing does provide the standardization. It provides the common denominator. And so that's how they use it, the schools that are still using testing. So it's not the end-all be-all. It is a piece of the puzzle. And so I encourage you to kind of approach the testing with a level head and realize it's one piece out of many, but to also be strategic about it, right? And to think very carefully and discuss with your son kind of the best way to go through the testing process without having it make everybody crazy. So first is that, again, the PSAT, we offer it here at Xavier fall of junior and senior year. I'm sorry, sophomore and junior year. This is the second year that we have offered the pre-ACT, okay, so the kind of preliminary practice pre-ACT for juniors. So that happens in the very end of September. We try to offer those two tests to our juniors. Somewhat close, they're like usually 2 weeks apart, and the reason why we do that so closely is so that the students can experience the two tests pretty close together and get a feel. So it's almost like they're test driving those two tests. The reason why we do that is because all colleges are accepting either the SAT and or the ACT, okay? So you really can, a student can just take SAT and not even think about ACT. Or a student can just take ACT and not ever take a real SAT, okay? So for the sophomore parents whose sons have taken the PSAT, hopefully that some materials went home about it, but the PSAT is a preliminary SAT. It is a practice, okay? The PSAT score does not go to the colleges, okay? Nobody gets that score. Now you may, sophomore parents have started to get an influx of mail, okay? That is because your son took the PSAT, and maybe you're getting mailings from Harvard, okay? That does not mean that he scored like off the charts. Maybe he did. But that is simply because it falls in a group of college-going students, and so that Harvard is getting the names from, you know, thousands and thousands of students who took the PSAT. Doesn't mean your son's not great. But that's kind of why the floodgates have now opened, is because now College Board knows about your sons, okay? So the PSAT is the beginning, then we offer the pre-ACT for juniors. Most of our students are taking either the SAT or the ACT at least twice, okay? And usually the first time they take one of these tests is in the second semester of junior year. So right now our juniors are really all kind of getting registered for their first test. Most of our guys, not everybody, but a lot of the guys are taking their first SAT in March of their junior year. Some do it in the January, December? I can't remember. December test date. Scrap the January one. Some are taking that December test date, but that's almost kind of early in junior year. So the March one kind of is the benchmark. A lot of students start at that point. Excuse me. From there, they may take it a second time in the spring of their junior year, or they may take it a second time in the fall of the senior year. Okay, you can take the SAT and the ACT up until December of your senior year. It depends on when you're actually sending in applications. So because the colleges are, when they receive these test scores, they have a policy called super scoring. So super scoring means that when you submit your test scores, when the student submits his test scores, the college will take the highest score in each section of that test as his highest section. So that means if he takes the March SAT and he gets a 600 in critical reading and writing, and he gets a 500 in the math, and then he takes the test again in September of senior year, and he gets a 500 in the critical reading and writing, and a 600 on the math, his super score is now the 1200, the 600 and the 600. Yeah? Okay, so that's what super scoring is. The highest score of each section, regardless of the test date, is combined, and that's what the college is considering his highest score. Okay? Now the ACT. The ACT is a different test. It's scored out of 36. It has 4 different sections. Okay, there's a science section right there. Sorry. The length of the test is a little bit shorter than the SAT, but when the SAT redesigned a couple years ago, they kind of aligned themselves more closely to the ACT. So the 4 components of the ACT, many colleges now are also super scoring the components of the ACT. So it used to be that they would take the highest total score of the ACT that a student got. Now they're looking at the different test dates of the ACT and taking their highest reading, their highest math, their highest science, their highest English. So anyway, the point of all of this level of detail, is to explain that taking these SATs or the ACT more than once can be beneficial. Okay? Most of our guys take the test at least twice. Some people will take one SAT, one ACT, see which one they do better on. Okay, if you go online, good old Google, conversion SAT to ACT, there's the public conversion chart. So if he takes an SAT and an ACT, you can see which one, when you make them comparable, which one's the higher one. But I also encourage students and families to talk about what he felt more comfortable taking. That's why we offer the pre-ACT and the PSAT so close to each other, is so that the student can experience which test he feels more comfortable in. Okay, because usually whichever one they feel more comfortable in is the one that they're going to be inclined to practice more, and that the one when they're sitting in the test they're going to feel more aligned with how it's presented, the timing of the sections, all of that. And if that becomes a question for you, if it's not clear after his PSAT or pre-ACT experience, then you look at the test results of those two practice tests and see if there's a clear front runner. And if there's not, then just pick one. It's that simple, just pick one. It's a question about testing? I'm not supposed to stop technically with questions. He's going to get mad at me. Okay, I'll come back to it. Excuse me. But what was I saying? See what else I'm doing about? Right, either one of the two tests, right? So if you go online and you, good old Google, hasn't taken over our jobs yet, but soon. But you Google, practice ACT and SAT side by side, and you will actually, there are plenty of sites that offer like a practice math SAT section and a practice ACT section. So he can kind of feel out, test drive, which test he kind of feels more comfortable with. And at the end, if it seems like it's comparable, then he just picks one. But I think that if the test prep is, you don't want to be spending money on SAT prep and ACT prep and kind of pursuing both paths. Like, do some testing, experience which one he thinks, and then proceed with one. Okay? Some people are trying to do both tests multiple times, and it gets confusing. Their brains are trying to switch between SAT and ACT, and it ultimately becomes too confusing. Okay. Some students actually are even in the senior year. They're taking 2 SATs or 2 ACTs even in the senior year. Okay? So it's really up to your son and you guys to decide what's the best timeline, the best test plan. Okay? So I know this is getting into a lot of detail in your freshman and sophomore parents, but yeah, I just want to prep you for, like, doesn't have to be like an overwhelming thing about you just test them out. You'll do that here at Xavier. He'll pick one. You decide the path forward. Okay? Subject tests. The SAT subject tests are content-specific tests. So there's the U.S. history subject test, there's the chemistry subject test, Spanish, Math 1 and Math 2. So all these different subject tests At this point, many colleges are not requiring these subject tests anymore. It used to be a much bigger thing, and now the colleges are realizing that it's kind of restrictive and prohibitive for a lot of people to have all this extra testing. And so they are becoming more, there are fewer colleges that actually require them. There are some colleges or specific programs that may require SAT subject tests. What we recommend is that if your son is doing really well in a particular subject, even now, even in freshman year or sophomore year, if he's doing really well in a subject that he actually likes and would actually not mind studying a little bit more for that test, okay? That at the end of the year, in June, because he's studying for his Xavier final anyway, that maybe he would sit for the subject test, say, in world history. Like if you have a sophomore and he's taking AP World and he's more or less into it, that maybe then you would get the SAT subject book, he'd study for that a little bit and take the SAT subject test in world history in June. That score just sits in his back pocket until it comes time to apply to colleges, and if he doesn't want to send it, he doesn't have to send it. Okay, it's not required to be sent. So again, some colleges will require it, a good old Google search, which colleges require SAT subject tests, plenty of websites that kind of show you who's requiring these tests at this point. Sophomore year, you know, to take the bio, or end of freshman year to maybe take the bio test. But again, most of our guys are not taking a lot of these subject tests. It's if there's an area, again, where he excels and he's okay with maybe doing a little bit more studying, because the curriculum that we have here doesn't match 100% to what the SAT subject test is covering. So again, if you really want to make it count, you know, you'd have to do a little bit of extra studying. Okay? If anybody has questions on the subject test, I encourage you to have your son talk to his current teacher in that subject and see, you know, what do you think about me taking this subject test in this subject in June? Does that make sense? Talk with your teacher. Okay, and lastly, test optional schools. So this is exciting that many colleges are deciding to not make the standardized testing a mandatory part of the application. If you go to this website, www.fairtest.org, you will see the full list of colleges that don't require SAT or ACT scores. The way that they explain it is it's just not part of the equation. So it's not as if you're being compared to students who do have SAT scores and therefore you're at a deficit, nor do they make the assumption that if you don't send your score that it must have been bad. Okay? And we've seen there's such a range of schools on there, to very highly selective schools to very accepting schools. So there's a nice range. I always tell the story that I had a student who from the beginning made it very well known he was not going to take anything. He wasn't going to take an SAT or an ACT. And his parents were on board. He looked at fairtest.org, saw plenty of schools he would be happy to go to, and just confirmed he was not applying to a SUNY or a CUNY. He was not, and so he took no test. And he had lots of options. So, it's a new wave in the testing world. Okay, I kind of talked about PSAT a little bit. I kind of talked about a lot of this, actually. Right, scores don't go to college. The PSAT is a little bit shorter than the real SAT. Some of the math is not as, that PSAT doesn't include some of the 11th grade math. There's a little bit of kind of 11th grade math on the SAT, so PSAT does not include that. And the PSAT scores, so for sophomore parents who got that report, and if you didn't, your son should have it on his College Board account. You should be able to find it. You know, looking at the sub-scores at the strengths and weaknesses can kind of give you some insight. And again, kind of discussing how the experience was as a whole. Maybe not yet, but definitely in junior year after he takes it a second time. We often look at the PSAT from sophomore year to the PSAT in junior year and see what kind of change we saw there. Hopefully we saw some growth. And if we see that growth, then that could be a good sign that the SAT could be a good fit for him. Plenty of free test prep online. With the Khan Academy joining with College Board, you can get personalized free test prep that's based on your scores. So that's pretty cool. If you go into College Board, they have your scores, they have all these sub-scores, and you link it to Khan Academy, and it actually kind of produces individualized practice sets of questions for you based on what your week you're in. So that's pretty cool. I think that this is a wonderful way to kind of bridge some formal test prep. Formal test prep is not required, or you know, you don't have to put your money in that, but if you choose to, this could be kind of a great thing to do in between tests. Okay, again, I kind of went through this already, kind of lost track of my slides. This is what happens when I turn it back. But when you're talking with your son, really kind of focus on put canceling headphones on to the rest of the world and really just think about what's going to be good for him and productive for him and good for your family. So I had a mom who emailed me who asked, is it okay if he does test prep over the summer and not right now? He's a junior. Yeah, that's good. If that's good for him, if he has too much going on right now and adding test prep on in the spring of junior year is not going to be productive for him, wait, take a test, get a benchmark score, have something so you know how you did. Then if the summer is better for him to do test prep, then do it then and then take it again in senior year. Hopefully, he's smarter in senior year, and then see what scores he gets. But some students doing test prep in the middle of the summer is a terrible idea, right? Their brains are off. So, just add it to their list of things to do in the academic semester, then they might do something. It's different for each student. And whether he does a tutor or a class or does the online, the free resources are out there. It's just that he's motivated enough, kind of disciplined enough to do it. That's kind of sometimes the beauty of the tutor or the class is you're showing up for it. Okay, that's me. I'm done. Here we go. Can't do it like that.
Can everybody hear me? All right, so as Molly said before, my name is Jimmy Buckley. I'm an alum from the class of 2013, so again, not too far removed. I know I look like I could be a senior, but I'm not, so here we are. So I'm here to talk about, the fun stuff, the extracurricular pieces, the letters of rec, personal statement. We'll talk about that, getting into that, again, more of an intro for you guys as freshmen and sophomore parents and students, but just some advice from an alum, from a coach, from somebody who finds themselves invested in the school. So, getting involved in extracurriculars. You should be doing that now. I'm sure there's been a lot of trial runs, whether that's trying out for teams, whether that's trying different clubs and activities, whether that's sticking with something that you've been doing forever, and all of those things are good ideas. This is a time where you should be testing what works, what doesn't work, what you really enjoy, what you're not too passionate about, and it's okay to get involved. What we want to see, and what colleges want to see, is involvement. And it's a quality over quantity. So they don't want to just see you in 100 clubs that you go to every so often, like you're in the Italian club, but you go twice a year. They want to see some commitment to the clubs that you're in. And maybe the Italian club only meets twice a year. If that's the case, then great. But again, something that you consistently do, that you're passionate about, things that move you, and figuring it out is part of that process. I know coming here and transitioning from from smaller middle schools to bigger high schools can be often difficult for students for a variety of reasons, obviously. First time into Manhattan, maybe, first time they got cut from a sports team, they were always the star at their middle school. That's okay. It's okay to fail, it's okay to grow. This is what we're here for, but we want to encourage kids to keep trying new things, to keep expanding their horizons. And whether that's inside of school or outside of school, that's perfectly fine. If your son's a Boy Scout, or if he's in a local play theater by your school, great, continue to do that. Colleges want to see that long-standing commitment. And if he's ready to start moving on to something else, awesome. But what are you going to do instead? There's not just a, hey, I'm done with this, now it's free time to do what I want. No, you want to find other productive things to put into your passions, whether that's towards school, great. Whether that's towards, another extracurricular, whether that's towards, a new passion that they might have just kicked up. You don't want to just leave that, take that failure and not experience something new. You want to grow, and you want to give it a go. So that would be my advice, and to have that conversation. If they're uncomfortable having that conversation with you, teachers, counselors, anybody here is more than happy to chat with your son. And if they don't feel comfortable with certain teachers, other teachers are there to chat too. Everybody wants to see your son succeed, and they want to see them grow. They want to see them buying into Xavier as much as we buy into Xavier. Because that's how you start to meet new people. Meet new friends, build relationships, learn new things. So just something to keep in mind. So again, quality over quantity. active summers, whether that's playing sports, whether that's traveling, whether that's working, all these things are great. You don't need to start thinking about college visits just yet, but if you want to, fantastic. That's great. The summer's a great time to check out a college or two just to see what it's like as a sophomore. You know, hey, this is what you need to kind of start looking towards, or this is what you have to look forward to. Could, you know, motivate them a little more, maybe in the academic realm, or maybe they're like, wow, I could really see myself on a campus like this, and it could kickstart some good conversation. So something to keep in mind. Commitment and leadership, again, I talked about this a little, staying with what you enjoy and what you're passionate about, and looking for opportunities to lead, to grow. Xavier has these opportunities, so do other schools as well, and other programs, but thinking about, you know, a captainship, or maybe the vice president, or maybe you're running for student body, or you want to be a director of a play, and you want to start to get more involved in the background scenes of that stuff. So again, we're stressing growth. And if they're uncomfortable having these conversations with you guys, we're happy to have them. And then balance of time. Obviously, academics, first and foremost, are the most important part. You're going to school for an education, same thing in college. They want to see that you're maintaining these grades with the balance of other commitments. They want to see well-rounded students. And a lot of our Xavier guys are well-rounded. And I would say that they're involved. I don't know if you guys would agree with me or not, but most of these guys here are involved. They get here early, they leave here late, or they're leaving from practice late. And then they're up late doing homework and stuff that I know can be exhausting. But colleges value that. They value kids who can thrive in this situation where they're going to take on more experiences in college as well. So that's extracurriculars. So letters of rec. I'm only going to touch on this kind of briefly for the sophomore and freshman parents, but they'll get 2 letters of recommendation in their junior year. That's when they'll ask. The counselors will automatically write your son a letter of recommendation. That's done in conjunction with the college counselors and the guidance counselors. So we split those evenly, have conversations, because obviously they've been with their counselors much longer than they've known us. So we work collaboratively, get a sense for who your son is, what is he up to, what's he interested in. That way we can put forward his best self onto a piece of paper. And then the same thing with teacher recs. The student will ask in junior year, again, not something that they need to worry about now, but advice again. Have them start going to community periods with teachers and professors. Whether they're succeeding, whether they're just looking to have conversation, whether they need a little extra help in math, those conversations could really help them in the long run. When you're looking for a letter of recommendation from a teacher that, you know, you may not have done the best in that subject, but hey, you were there every day, kind of giving it your all, asking for help. Teachers want to see that. Teachers want to have conversations with people. They want to know that you're invested in this as much as they are. So again, talking to teachers at community period. The personal statement. Excuse me. So the personal statement, also known as the college essay, something you guys don't need to worry about yet, but the essence of a student on a piece of paper. 650 words is the max, so it's tough to kind of put that into perspective for colleges. So you want to make sure that that's something that you're proud of, and it should be, again, student-driven. But this is a good time to start having conversations about growth, about big events in your life that kind of shaped you, or things that you're looking forward to. There are plenty of kids who have grown, obviously, since freshman year, and there's a lot that goes on in between those times, so it's important to step back, talk about it. You know, whether that's a service trip that they went on, whether that's, you know, Kairos or one of these retreats that we offer, or whether it's a big game where you may not have succeeded, but this is what you learned, or a variety of different things. But the bottom line is, this is their personal statement. It's supposed to be personal, and we work with them to shape that essay to what they want it to be. It's not going to be perfect the first time around. It might not be perfect the third, fourth, fifth time around. But it's until you're comfortable with what you want to say, and we'll work with you throughout that process. So those are the last 3 pieces of that five numbered
steps, I guess, that the college process requires. All of those things build on each other. So they want to see you in the whole picture. So there's the transcript, there's the test scores, then there's the extracurriculars. All of this is building a narrative towards who your student, who your son is. What they're like in the classroom, what they're like at home, what are their interests, passions, etc. All of these are another piece of the puzzle that go together. So, shifting gears a little bit, I'm going to talk about our tool we use. It's called Naviance. We use this with juniors and seniors when we start meeting with juniors in the second semester of their junior year. So it's our college search tool. It's also where we send our documents. It's where we make, where your sons will make their college list, where they'll do a majority of their research. And it's a way for us to communicate with colleges, just something that we use to help students shape expectations, like based on GPA and scores, based on interest, what schools kind of meet that criteria, and which schools do you meet, and which schools are a little out of your reach, or which schools are right in your wheelhouse in terms of grades and scores. And then going from there, we make a list, and we talk about that. So building a college list. Molly talked a little bit about our mission statement earlier. I just want to reiterate, we are focused on fit rather than name. We're not focused on the name brand school. We're not focused on these crazy out of the, super competitive schools. Maybe some students might be. And if they're going to go for that and they feel that's a fit for them, great. But I think it's important to know that each experience, your son's experience, is going to be unique to them. So a reach for your student, a reach for your son, may be a likely or a school that might be more in reach for another student. And that's okay. Every school that we talk about is going to be geared towards the student fit, college fit, and family fit. So we're going to talk about the student fit, how they feel on campus. Do they have the major that they're offering? Does it meet their criteria? Is it too far from home? Is it not far enough? The family fit, financially. Obviously, this is an expensive investment, and you want to make the most of it. And it's as much your decision as it is his decision, because most of you guys will be funding the operation. So having those conversations, and this is a good time to open dialogue and kind of talk about the opportunities that he has. Distance and travel, how far you're willing to let your son go, whether that's the West Coast or whether that's 40 minutes away. You guys know what works, what doesn't work. And then the college fit. So it could be a student fit. The student could feel, your son could feel like, wow, this college is great for me. This is exactly what I want to be. The college may not feel that. So it's like, whether it's a grade thing or whether that's an involvement thing, it's something to keep in mind. But it's as equal, and we'll talk about that, based on the academic environment. So like, if your son, is like, Harvard's the school for me, this is the fit, but, he's a 70 student or, a little lower, obviously Harvard being one of the most competitive schools in the country, that may not be their fit. It might be your son's fit based on his criteria. So just something to keep in mind. We stress the word fit throughout the process. So now I'm going to pass it off to Mr. Tom Gibbons, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Mr. Buckley. Sorry, I have to laugh when Jimmy was just talking about fit and how it might be a fit for your kid, and maybe the college doesn't see it the same way. I had a Taylor Swift song going in my head about, cheer captain and I'm in the bleachers and all that jazz. But anyway, unlike Mr. Buckley, I no longer look like a high school senior. This is my 21st year at Xavier. I've been in the college, this is my second stint in the college counseling office. And I'm happy to be here with you. Everybody with me? You guys still good? Glued? All right, here we go. So, after you've done all of your research and you've taken your SATs and you have gone on your visits and your transcript is nice and tidy and you have your list of activities together and you've written your personal statement, your essay, eventually things do have to go, those things are sent to the college by you you will send your well, not you, please not you, please make it your son. It'll be a better process, or you can check on him and look over his shoulder and make sure that these things are happening. But he should be the one to click send. You will have to pay for the application fees, but he should be the one doing the majority of the work. If he is not, it will show through and will be detrimental to his evaluation. And that's an experience that we know to be true. But when your son sends that out, he sends his scores, you pay your fees. We also send a number of things Molly went over in the beginning. We send you transcripts. We being Xavier, we being the college counselors. We'll send you transcript, we'll send a school profile, which we'll talk about now and how that plays a big role. We'll send a secondary school report, which is an evaluation of the rigor of your son's curriculum and the content of his character. We always give very nice high marks on that. Seriously, we do. I think we have great kids, and even if they've made mistakes, they're still good human beings. We send the teacher recommendations, and we send the counselor recommendations. So, when we're talking about the profile, a college will take that profile for every student they get from Xavier High School. A lot of times, a college will review the group of students from a particular high school in the same time frame. So they'll take the 20 Xavier kids that applied to, St. John's, and they'll read all the Xavier applications at one time, because it gives them a sense of how that student fits academically within the group of students that are applying to their school. And how do they determine that? Well, they'll take the transcript and they'll look at the recommendations, they'll look at the secondary school report, but they'll evaluate the transcript next to the profile that we sent them. We didn't give out copies because by this time of year, we've sent a lot of them out to the colleges that your sons are applying to. There is a copy on the school website. If you go to the website and search school profile, it'll pop up. It's a 4-page document that has a ton of information, all pertaining to Xavier students, to give the college a snapshot of who your son is, where our guys come from to arrive here, what their grade ranges are, what their SAT ranges are, how that compares to other students in New York State, in the country, so on and so forth. We give them every little bit of demographic data that they might need to figure out how your son compares to his class. All right? And you're not being compared, the standard measure that all the colleges will use that want this measure are your standardized test scores, your SATs and your ACTs. But you're going to hear, and we hear this all the time, oh man, my friend goes to this school in wherever and he has 107 average, what am I going to do? Don't worry, you're fine, okay? You're being compared against what we offer in terms of the rigor of our curriculum and how we grade you, okay? We don't rank our students. You're not given a class rank. We use a decile bands, and we give a snapshot of the top 25% of the class. There are reasons for that. We'll explain that in the junior presentation. But after careful research and consultation with the colleges, we find that serves our students that need to be served in that way, okay? Excuse me, we've all got a little tickle tonight, all right? And basically, let me get back to the point. So they have your transcript, they have the profile. If your son has taken AP and honors classes because they've earned the right to take them, they've chosen to take them, they've accepted a challenge, that's a good thing. If they have applied but haven't gotten in, that's okay too. They want to see who you were as a freshman, how you progressed towards sophomore year, academically on your transcript, and where you are junior year. All right, and your 6th semester GPA is the one number, the cumulative total of all of your grades, that will be the one snapshot number that a college is going to look at. They are going to look at your progression. They're going to look at the progression of who you were at 14 as a student, all the way through who you are at 17. You'll hear often that your junior year grades are the most important. Mathematically speaking, that is not true. All right? Mathematically speaking, all of your grades are put together and averaged into that one number. Okay? But if your son had an 83 average freshman year, picked it up to an 87 sophomore year, and then moved into junior year, took a couple of honors or AP courses, pulled it up to a high 89, that's great. Going into senior year, maybe he's taking a couple more honors courses, and that's a great progression. That's a great trend that colleges want to see. They're going to want to know who your son is at 17 and 18 compared to who they were at 14, 15, okay? So if your son isn't bringing home the grades that you wanted to see so far, number one, there's still time, and number two, I'm not going to say it's okay to them, but it's got to be, okay? It is what it is. All you can do is move forward, I think you'd all agree. And if that trend is steady, you're in good shape, all right? So the profile gives a sense to the colleges of where that student fits within the context of their peers, okay? And that's all they really can evaluate them on. You can't be compared to a school with 107 average versus a 4.0 versus an ABC scale versus a no grading scale. Some schools don't offer grades. So how do you make sense of it and how do you enroll a class? They're going to compare you based on what's available to you in terms of your course load and how well you've done within that course load. Pretty simple, all right? So there are also other things in the profile. So we listed the number of AP courses we have and when a student can take them, the honors courses we offer, the electives we offer. We offer, if your son is interested in engineering or computer technology, you're in a great place. We have 2 levels of AP Physics. We have a robotics lab that competes and wins awards all the time. I don't know exactly what they do, how they do it, but they do it pretty well, and they look like they're having fun doing it. We have a lot of creative technology options. We have all kinds of sports and co-curricular activities from, Jimmy talked about that for a little bit, so that they will have opportunities to take advantage of while here. We also require them to do Christian service. You guys know that. Sophomores will do 10 hours, juniors will do 10 or 20 hours. Seniors have a full second semester 72-hour project where they'll be at their placements on Mondays in the second half of the year. All that is described on the profile, so colleges can get a sense of who our students are in our community and if they have taken advantage of these opportunities, whether required or just optional. Again, as I said before, we don't rank, most high schools will not rank their students. You'll see on some college applications that they'll ask for a rank. I really don't know many schools who actually give a first in the class, second in the class, third in the class rank. They usually fit a kid into a GPA band to give a sense of where they are. And all right, so similar to what Jimmy was saying before, you might go on the tour, you might think a school is a great fit, they might think you're a great fit. Things change within the admissions world from year to year, but for the most part, they remain pretty consistent. When it comes time to figure out where your son fits in the grand scheme of a Xavier graduating class, we will be more than happy to help you figure that out. So that when it comes time to figure out what your reach schools might be, what your targets are, what your schools you're more likely than not to get into, we have the knowledge that goes far deeper than what you'll see on the Naviance scattergram. Those are great tools initially, but there's a lot that underlies the truths in those. So we're happy to help you figure that out. And I've been, I seem to always get this one in the presentation realm, and I'm happy to talk about costs with you as long as you don't throw things at me. All right? You may have heard college can be expensive. All right? If you Google most expensive college in the country, you'll find that the cost is over $80,000 a year if you include fees and room and board and all that. And by the time your son's there will be more colleges in that range. The good news is you will rarely pay the sticker price at any of those schools, any of the private schools. All right? But keep in mind, some of the more competitive colleges that don't have giant endowments like the super wealthy schools are, you may have to pay that sticker price, all right? I've seen instances where a kid will get into a school, he was on the bubble, he was on the cusp, he had a shot, we weren't sure, he gets in. But you're looking at paying $75,000 a year for 4 years. That's a conversation that you need to have with your son going into the process. We know which schools will, I won't say do that to you, but where that will be the situation, okay? So if you're crafting a list with your kid, and we're doing that on our end when we get to junior group guidance, and we're working with them in that capacity. If you look at the list and say, what the hell is Gibbons thinking? Is he nuts? I can't pay for that. This isn't going to work. Feel free to call me. You can call me nuts. I can take it. That's fine. It's good for us to know where you believe you will stand in terms of paying for things, okay? That said, we will always encourage you, even if you're what a college might call a full payer, even if you believe that you can foot the bill for that, that's a wonderful thing. Go for it. If you have that opportunity, that's great. But you never know when things might go south for some reason, or something bad may happen, God forbid. We're always going to encourage your son to look at a state school. If you're in New York or Jersey, Rutgers, TCNJ, Montclair State. In New York, we have the SUNY system, Albany, Binghamton, Buffalo, Cortland, Oswego, Oneonta. Plenty of state schools your son can still go away to that are great schools. In the city, we have the CUNYs, Hunter, Queens, Brooklyn, Baruch, City College of Technology, just to name a few. And we will highly encourage, you don't have to, but we will highly encourage you to consider one of those schools as well as you go along the process. Again, it's a nice option. The SUNYs will cost you under $30,000 a year, room, board, fees, and everything, where tuition alone can cost up to $45,000, which is kind of crazy. All right? You can do all of your research on what a college actually costs on their website. Best place to find the direct numbers of what you'll be looking at. Okay? And then comes in financial aid, which helps defer some of the cost on the sticker. All right? The main tool that you will use to apply for financial aid is the FAFSA, the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. It's a .gov website. Do not go to FAFSA.com. Okay, I don't know who's getting your information. Don't give it to them. Give it to the government, because we can trust them, right? All right, good. I know you're with me. All right, so you're gonna use the FAFSA to apply for financial aid, and that goes to every college in the country, and sometimes some of the international schools will accept the FAFSA. All right. If you want to get an estimate now, if you're going to go home and say, holy crap, this really scared me, I need to go figure this out, there's a tool on the FAFSA website called the FAFSA Forecaster. That's not a typo, they use the number 4. Not forecast of the word, but forecaster. All right? And that will give you an idea. The FAFSA will go a little deeper into your financial profile than the forecaster will, but put in your basic information of the forecaster, and they will shoot you out an EFC. An expected family contribution amount. Sometimes it's confusing when you get that number in the end because they don't put a $ in front of it, and there typically are a few zeros before most of people's numbers come out. But they will give you a number that any college would reasonably expect you to pay out of pocket before loans and scholarships, out of pocket, to pay for your college education. And that number is applicable to any college that you apply to. Okay? So if the FAFSA forecaster spits out or gives you an EFC of $20,000, whether you're going to Hunter, which would cost you $7,500, whether you're going to Binghamton, which would cost you $27,000, or if you're going to Syracuse, which would cost you $75,000, you're expected to pay $20,000 out of pocket. How does the rest get paid? Well, Hunter, you're in good shape. Maybe they'll pay you. Binghamton, you have to make up $7,000. Right? So they may give you loans, federal Stafford loans, in the amount of $5,500 for each year for the 4 years. That's a federal loan, good interest rate. Some of them are subsidized where you don't have to pay interest while you're in college. One of them is unsubsidized where still a good rate, interest rate, better than a typical loan, where the interest will accrue as soon as you take it out. There are other forms of loans, Parent Plus loans being the most prominent one, where, anybody have a Plus loan? Sally Mae, familiar? Yeah, we have a certain name for her in my house, which I won't speak right now. We don't like her. But if she is going to help you attain your educational goals, Sally Mae may have to be your friend for a little while, all right? So you apply for federal aid and institutional aid at times by using the FAFSA. Okay? Everyone will have to submit the FAFSA if you want to be considered for aid. Some people don't. Most of our population does. I always say submit the FAFSA no matter what, even if you don't think you're not going to get any money. There still might be something there for you that you don't realize depending on the schools you're applying to. Every school will take your EFC and do something different with it. Okay? If your EFC is $20,000 and you apply to, let's just say Harvard, and they cost $75,000 a year. They have such a large endowment, and they have so much financial aid to give. If your expected family contribution is $20,000, they're going to give you $50,000 in a grant. A grant is a scholarship that you do not have to pay back. All right? An Ivy League school will not give you an academic scholarship. They don't do that. They don't give athletic scholarships. But they are very generous with financial aid. That's why you can't frown upon them too much, even if they let in 5% of their applicants. All right? So that's where the conversation with us comes in. We know which schools will be generous. You can look all this up on your own, but some schools are much more generous than the others. So don't let the sticker price scare you away, all right? Always file the FAFSA though, always. There's a secondary, in addition to the FAFSA, some schools, mostly private schools, some state schools, very few, but mostly private schools, will require the CSS profile. It's a secondary financial aid evaluation tool that's a deeper dive into your personal finance life. I've met a parent who likes filling out the FAFSA. They really don't like filling out the CSS profile. But if a school requires it for financial aid review, often you give institutional aid to the students, you will need to file it. Okay, a lot of people forget that too, so CSS profile is a big point to hammer home, all right? It's not every college, but there are a good number of colleges that our guys typically apply to that require that, all right? That's through the College Board, which is the company that runs the SAT. So your son will already have a College Board account. You'll log in on the CSS profile page using that account, and you'll probably spend 3 hours of your life filling that out from start to finish. Forewarned, and it can be an aid to you, so it is definitely worth the time. And where the FAFSA is free to file, the CSS profile does charge you a fee per school that you send it to. Thank you, College Board. You're definitely a nonprofit. And then the net price calculator. Again, another tool that if you want to start looking at now, and you can look at it any time. Every college that accepts federal aid, and all of them do, will have a net price calculator available on their financial aid site. All right? It's similar to the FAFSA forecaster, but particular to that school. So if you go on the school's net price calculator, you put in the information that they ask for, it won't take very long. They will give you an expected price you will have to pay. They'll break it down a little bit for you in terms of what's out of pocket, what you can expect in institutional aid, what you might expect in financial aid. But that's a good way to get a specific read on each individual college in terms of what you would have to pay on any given year. All right. And then in terms of scholarships, grants, work study, and loans, when you apply for aid using the FAFSA, all right, and we submit your transcript and you submit your test scores, every school will have a different way they evaluate all that in terms of your generating your financial aid package. So a scholarship is typically given to a student based on their merit being determined by their GPA and your test scores, all right? A merit-based scholarship. Nice to get those. That's money you typically do not have to pay back. Hey, Johnny, here's $5 grand. Why don't you come to our school? Great. A grant, also a term for a piece of the financial aid puzzle that a school may give you, again, that you don't have to pay back. All right? Grants are wonderful things. Scholarships are wonderful things. It's money the school's giving you to defray the cost of the sticker price to get you to go to their school. All right? Work study is a federal program where you would be able to work a job, typically on campus. You will be allotted a certain amount of money you can make per semester for the year, and that'll be paid by the federal government while you have a job close to campus where you don't have to spend time too much time going to and forth, and that would be part of your financial aid package. Work study money does not subtract directly from the bill. That is money that goes directly to your student, and they can do what they please with it. You may want to guide them on that a little bit, because they will be gone from ours. And then loans, again, I spoke to that a little bit before. For a lot of us, it's tough to go to college without the help of a loan. And again, yesterday, the 15th, was a deadline day for seniors for regular decision. Over the next month and a half, 2 months, they'll be bringing us their financial aid award letters, and we'll help them decipher what it actually means. Some letters are laid out a little more clear than others, and we're happy to do that to make all of your dreams come true. All right, the timeline. So you have a piece of your handout packet that is a cream color, and hopefully that will be on your fridge for the next 2.5, 3.5 years. And if for some strange reason you lose it, we have it on the website as well, and we'll give it out over the next. So we do these so we have a freshman, sophomore presentation, fall of junior year. We'll see you again in this room, and we'll have a lot more detail in terms of the process, practice, and what to do next. And then senior year in September, we'll be here again, and we'll know you all very well by that point, and we'll have another presentation. So we're with you every step of the way, hopefully. All right. So please use that as a guide. We tweak that, we update it as things change, as the colleges decide they're going to do things differently or take a different perspective and trends change or morph into something different. We do update the timeline, but there are a lot of things that will still remain the same, okay? It is good for you to start having the conversations about college with your son now, all right? He may not want to. It is the end of the quarter, all right? So they may have a lot of work coming up between now and the end of next week. So let them focus on that, because that's the most important factor in all of this. Their GPA, their 6th semester GPA is the #1 thing, the first thing and the most important thing that colleges will always look at when evaluating your son for admission to their school, all right? But please do start talking about this now. If they're going to push you off and say, "Ma, it's too early, I don't need this," it's never too early, all right? The sooner you get on the ball, and you don't have to do a ton right now, all right? It's just a conversation right now. What do you think you might want to study? How far do you want to go? I want to go to Penn State. Oh, you do? You're a city kid. You lived in Manhattan your whole life. You want to go to Penn State? You like cows? You like big open fields? All right, that's cool. We'll go check it out. We'll go check it out. So they might not know. That's my point. They might not know what they want, and that's okay too. You may have an idea of what you want for them. It does need to line up with what they want at some point, okay? But the sooner you start having the conversation, the better. Your son's guidance counselors, so in terms of the academic planning piece, we will be there with them, okay? If your son has no honors or AP course, well, he wouldn't have an AP, but if he has no honors or AP courses as a freshman or sophomore, that's okay, all right? It is tough to go from no honors to any honors going from freshman to sophomore year, all right? If they started in honors, great, good for them. Keep going with that, in that direction if you can. By the time junior year comes along, sophomores start to figure it out. Their grades tend to go up a little bit if they're a serious student and they want to strive and achieve and try to get to the next level of rigor in that particular field of study. They can apply for honors courses. They can apply for an AP course. All right? Anybody can at any time. Your son's guidance counselor will help them choose those courses. Okay? We will, and Mr. Lavallo is involved with this as the Dean of Academics as well. We will encourage them, we being the college counselors who help the juniors choose courses, and your son's counselors, we will do this in group guidance. We will encourage them to strive toward the most rigorous curriculum they can take while still being able to do well. So if you're pulling an 80 in history and say, I want to take AP World History next year, you won't be allowed to. You haven't proven to this point that you can achieve a 90 or better in that discipline, because the rigor, when we say rigor, it's harder. It's more rigorous. It ramps up. It moves faster. The expectations for workload are more. And we're not going to put you into a situation that we think you may fail in if you haven't proven that you can accept the challenge and that you're up for the challenge. That doesn't mean that they'll never get there. Senior year, it opens up a whole lot, okay? But at this point, if they've been a good student, if they're looking at second honors or first honors, they should try to take tougher courses, all right? If they're sitting on a 95 average, which is very rare, don't be nervous, very rare to be in that air of a mid-90s or higher average, okay? And they're like, nah, I'm just going to take the regular college curriculum. In a way, that's fine, but what do you want out of your college process? If you want to get into the most competitive schools, they're going to want to see that if you've done well, you're going to accept the next challenge at the next level. If you're not, it's going to look like you're taking it a little bit easy. Ultimately, we want you to maintain a balance between rigor and stress level. Because if you're overly stressed, no one's going to be happy or do well, and you don't want that to affect your health. I'm sure you've seen that at some point. Our guys are very committed. They don't even know the level of commitment that they take to play a sport here. It's, you know, I moved to the Burbs 6 years ago. You just roll out of school and go on a field and do it, and you get home by 4:30. Meanwhile, our guys are starting games at 4:30 or practice at 4:30, come home, do their homework, and do that, right? All a matter of context with that, but we do want them to try to challenge themselves to do as well as they can going forward, all right? Relationships with teachers, that tends to happen naturally, all right? We have a lot of opportunities for guys to seek help during community period if they're not doing well in the class. A lot of guys take advantage of that. our teachers genuinely care about our students and about your guys. I think that's part of what you saw when you were deciding where to send your sons. And that's important because they're going to have to ask a teacher to write a recommendation letter. Based on our group guidance curriculum, they will know their counselor, and their counselor will know them. We don't let them not go to these things. We have an audience with them and they with us, at least once a cycle freshman year and sophomore and junior year, once every other cycle. So we see them, we do get to know them, we know them by name, we know what they're into, where they're from, what you guys have going on potentially. And they're a resource. Guidance counselors here are cool, I think, and kids don't stay away from them, and they do. They're great people who love your kids. So we do get to know them, and the letter will be written by the counselor for them. They have to ask a teacher, okay? So if your son wants to be an astrophysicist, you might want to get to know that physics teacher, all right? You can get to know all your teachers, but you're probably not going to ask your religion teacher for a recommendation to an engineering program, okay? So if you keep those things in mind, we will all steer them in the right direction. And rarely, I mean, it never happens where they mismanage their teacher rec, all right? Most guys will have teachers more than willing to write for them and happy to do so and have something great to contribute to that letter. But, you know, if you do want to be an engineer, don't step on Mr. Key's toes because you think it's funny, you know, if he's going to be the one writing your letter. And you will see fit all over our literature, all over our website. We're going to talk about it a lot. If you want a shot at an Ivy League school, Stanford, Georgetown, we will fully support you, even if you have a 75 average and didn't score 1,000 on the SAT. If that's your dream, man, you go for it. You pay that application fee, we got your back, we'll send you materials. We're also going to be very realistic with you, okay? The competition level for the Ivy League schools and schools that have similar types of admissions rates throughout the country, it's really gotten out of control. It's become a frenzied thing in the minds of parents and students and even people on our end of the profession, either in the admissions offices or on our side of the desk, all right? Take a deep breath. Your son will find a wonderful career and a job no matter where he goes if that's what he chooses to do, okay? We want them to go for what they want. We want them to go for what you want. We want it to be a great fit and a great experience at a great place. There are more than 20 great places in the world, all right? And if you don't believe that, let's talk sooner than later, all right? I'm not going to try to change your mind, but I do know our guys tend to find the place that is good for them. Even if they didn't get into what they think was best for them, they always find a place that's good for them. We wouldn't let them create a list of colleges to apply to that didn't have some of those places on there. We know the schools. We've been to the campuses. We know the admissions officers at a lot of these places. We have an idea based on our own experience and history with alums that come back and tell us, I love it because of this. I love it because of that. They might be for different reasons at the same place, but once we get to know your kid, we talk to the counselor, and we talk to you, and we talk to your son, this whole cumulative process and partnership will help him find that great place. So if you want to apply to schools with big names, buy a sweatshirt and a t-shirt every time you go on a campus tour, that's great. We're all for it. But again, we're going to find you a lot of great options as it goes on. Campus visits. We've talked about this a bunch. I'm not going to belabor the point, but one thing to always remember, you can start going whenever you want. You don't have to go now. Seeing a campus in the Midwest in February is not going to look as good as it does in late April, all right? Or anywhere outside of South Carolina then, or California, all right? You can go whenever you want. Always get on their website or call their admissions office and register for a campus tour, an information session, and open house. If you go all the way out to Berkeley and walk around and play a little hacky sack with the kids out there, whatever you got to do to make it real again for your college experience, that's great. But if they don't formally know that you were there, there's something lost in that, okay? Some schools track demonstrated interest. They want to know that if, for example, you want to apply to Columbia, you want to apply to NYU, super. But if you go to school on 16th Street and you don't formally visit those schools, that's not going to look too good for you. You can get there very easily, all right? Makes sense, right? They're going to figure these things out, okay? So let them know you were there. If you didn't like it, you don't necessarily have to give them that feedback. You can let us know, but definitely let them know you were there, all right? Summer after sophomore year, there aren't going to be as many students on campus when school is out, but it's still a good time to go visit, all right? Locally, you've got a lot of great options. Fordham has the Lincoln Center campus and a campus in the Bronx. Fine Jesuit institution. You've got Manhattan College in Riverdale, a little smaller than Fordham, still a great little Catholic school, engineering program. If you want to see a bigger state school, you got Stony Brook in Suffolk County, which is about an hour and a half away, depending on traffic and where you live. If you want to see an even bigger state school, Rutgers isn't too far away. You've got a couple of Ivy League schools within the 2.5-hour radius. You've got some schools that are much more attainable to gain admission to, that are very generous with financial aid officers, that would be make your heart swell, all right, that are still great schools, okay? Go out and visit. See a smaller campus, see a bigger campus, see a medium-sized campus. There's a big difference between Rutgers' population and NYU's population, but they're similar in number, okay? So big is relative, all right? Big is relative. Penn State is big and spread out. NYU is big and this wide and this far up, okay? They're different. Smaller schools don't necessarily, it really depends on the kid. Small to one person is going to feel like medium to another, all right? Don't get too caught up in what you think you might want until you've been on campus, all right? And that goes for you and your son. Who thinks they have a son who might say, "Ma, I don't want to go on tours with you, you know, I don't want to do that"? Show of hands. Probably more than who raised it. Bring a friend. Have him bring a friend, whether it's his girlfriend or a classmate here. Just bring someone else with you. You can ask all the questions you want, and they can kind of go over here and listen from the side, because they will listen, right? And they can kind of go off and explore a little bit on their own while you're still on the same tour. All right? It will help you, trust me. Bring a friend. All right. And going forward, we're going to get them their Naviance accounts with their college counselor within the second semester at some point, depending on where the curriculum falls and where the calendar falls, all right? We have 2 more events for freshman and sophomore parents, coffee talks. Yeah. All right, and those will happen on March 19th and May 7th, first thing in the morning, right after the school bell rings. We will send you an email to register for the events, is that right? March 19th? No? March and May. Specific dates TBA. I'm looking at an old note I wrote. Email will be out sooner than later. All right. Underclassmen Financial Aid Night will be on Thursday, March 25th here in this room, or maybe in the library, depending on the response. No biggie on that one, but that's another, so we'll have a financial aid representative from a college here to delve deep into the financial aid process if you want to hear more about that. We'll also hold that same evening for juniors and for seniors as well when that time comes around, but definitely good to go out to that if you can make it here. All right, and please feel free to reference our website at any time. It's under the academics page on the website. We'll have the presentation up, video, we'll have the handouts there if you lose them or misplace them. And all of our information is up there if you want to reach out to any of us at any time. Eventually your son will be assigned a college counselor midway through junior year, but right now you can ask any of us the same questions and we're happy to help. You can find the profile on the website too. And there are a lot of, we'll also have a list of summer programs that might pertain to your son. Typically it's for rising juniors and seniors, the programs that we're made aware of. But if you're looking for an academic summer program or anything that might be on a college campus or of value to your son, check out the summer program options on that page. And thank you for coming. Thank you for your patience. We'll take questions now. If you want to stick around, great, ask questions. We're happy to answer them. If it is time for you to get going, feel free. Thanks for coming out, and we're looking forward to talking.
All right, I know we have some testing questions. Go ahead.
For our honors or AP classes, weighted differently than GPA or considered to be
Right, okay. Is this on? Is this working? Okay. Okay, so the question was about our APs and honor classes here, and if they are weighted, and how are they kind of considered on the profile, and how do the colleges look at that? So no, we do not weight our grades here. We don't weight the GPA. So what the student gets in the class is on the transcript, the grade that he received, and the cumulative GPA is calculated as such. The reason why, so you'll hear that other schools, they'll have a weighted grade system. So if a student takes an honor or an AP class, the grade is still reported the same, but the GPA is adjusted for that honors or AP. So we do not do that. And the reason is the colleges have their own systems of weighting the courses, weighting the rigor of the program. So we do not do that. They each do it differently. So they will look at the transcript and say, Columbia will be looking at the transcript very differently than Fordham will be looking at it, who will be looking at it differently than, say, Loyola Maryland. So they will determine the rigor of the student's program as compared to what they're looking for. That being said, in terms of the bands, what we do is we, as a group, go through each of the seniors and we look at their program, so all their transcripts together, and then we make a designation on the level of that student's program as compared to the whole class. So there are 4 designations of a program. So most rigorous, most demanding, rigorous, advanced, and college prep. So all of our classes are college prep. So the students we give the college kind of that understanding of where the student's program falls within his class. And then from there, and we talk to the admissions people a lot about this, that they put their own evaluation, their own criteria of the rigor on the transcript when they are reviewing it.
It balances the
Long
playing field for the
explanation.
entire applicant.
Right. Okay, yeah.
When will the SAT subject test?
When? They are offered throughout the year, actually. You can take them anytime. We recommend that the students take them either in May or June and that they take them at the end of the year of which they're taking that subject. So they can take it in May. Our exams are that the first week of June, the second week of June. So there's usually an SAT subject test or regular SAT, but an opportunity to take those subject tests then, or he could take it in May.
So unlike the SAT and the ACT, which is everything that I have to do a year senior, we should take it early.
They could be, but yeah, we just generally recommend it's at the end of their school year of taking that class. But not always. We have some seniors who will take an SAT subject test in a course that they took, another year because either they didn't want to take it then or, a lot of times like for guys who have advanced language, they'll take the French SAT subject test in senior year, something like that. Or the math, maybe that's kind of can be more floating. Even the literature can be more floating.
And there are science, math, literature for English, world history, U.S. history, any language that we teach here is offered. Not every subject is offered on every subject test administration. So some of them are only in December, some of them are only in June. But it's all
on the
listed
website.
It's all on the website, very clear, yeah. Little planning, you'll be all set.
Yeah, I think I had here for some, then I see next.
You were talking about that SAT versus that ACT. Do some colleges prefer one or the other?
No,
Like with the science section and
Nope.
the engineering?
no
Doesn't matter.
preference.
They'll take either.
No, right, they'll take either. The only thing with the engineering with the subject test, those are those kinds of like particular programs where the college may not require SAT subject tests, but if you're applying to engineering, they might require a subject test. So if you have somebody who's headed towards engineering and you know that now, just do a Google search, kind of get a sense of which engineering programs are requiring a math or science or both subject tests. And usually within that, you get a choice of which science subject test you want to take. Yeah, I think yes here.
I was told by another graduated Xavier parent that if you go to school in New York City, but you're a New Jersey resident, you can still pay in-state tuition to SUNY schools?
That is correct.
True?
Mm-hmm.
Verify it with the particular SUNY. You never know. I feel like things change year to year with
That's
budgets.
true. They can change year to
But-
year. That is historically
Correct.
been the case, yes.
What was the question?
Sorry, the question was if you're a New Jersey resident, but you've gone to Xavier for 4 years, that your son is eligible for in-state SUNY and CUNY tuition. But again, everything, things change with those. Okay, I'm so bad at calling in people because I feel like it's hard.
Is the number of times you take the SAT or ACT in consideration?
Such a good question. I didn't mention that before. Thank you. No, they do not care how many times you take it because they really are super scoring. And unless they took a lot of extra steps to go back, well, you wouldn't send the other scores. You would send, okay, so the test states, right, you can the college is going to super score the highest section of math, the highest section of the reading. So you're really only going to need to submit those 2 test dates. That make sense?
So when you could take a test and choose not to submit
Correct.
scores.
Yeah, correct. Right. Sorry, I should have said that. You can take a test, an SAT, and choose not to send it. Okay. I should say that when you take the test and you get your scores, every time when a student is going to send out his scores to a college, you pay for that. You pay for each submission. That's why you get to choose now. Back in the day, you didn't get to choose. You had to send them all. But then you didn't have to pay for all the submissions. So you get what you pay for, right? I think here, yeah. Thanks.
How do 529 camps get scholarships or grants, except program?
You're going to have to wait for the financial aid night on that one. The 529 accounts. Our rep that comes and speaks at financial aid night talks all about the 529 accounts. Just a very quick answer, it's different for every school. How they're going to use the 529 accounts versus scholarship and merit aid and grants and all of that. When it comes to financial aid night.
Absolutely. That said, it's not bad to have some college-specific savings. You're not gonna regret having a 529. It won't be a monumental shift for the most part.
Here, and then I'm going to come here, but this lady.
I love that you guys are talking about a lot of what I call soft skills for the
Yep.
kids to have, like more extracurricular or joining clubs. I've been talking about that with my son, but he kind of doesn't want to hear me. So I'm just wondering, I have 2 questions. Are you guys driving that home to them? Are there guidance counselors driving that home to them? I mean, my son's involved, but he's not doing clubs, for example. He's doing a lot of sports, but he's not rounding himself out a lot, and I'm trying to push him in that way, but he's not, or guide him gently, but he's not
Sure.
responding to that. So that's my first question.
Yep.
And then my second question was, you mentioned summer, having stuff going on in the summer. My
Yep.
son has big plans to sit on the couch all summer.
Right.
I can tell him it's not a good idea to do, but he won't listen to me. Are you guys?
Is he a freshman or sophomore?
He's a sophomore.
Okay. Has he been part, well, so it wouldn't be any of the 4 of us at this point, as we don't have hands-on freshmen or sophomores yet. Their guidance counselor would be the best person to turn to first with such concerns. But they've got to do something. It's tough to find a job sometimes if you're not 16 yet. I understand that, but there are things going on here, CFX, HAP, a lot of in-house opportunities, and then if you want them, if you're comfortable with sending them away somewhere, there are overnight programs. There is a cost involved in those typically, but there is something out there. I'd say check the web. Is he involved in ROTC?
No.
Okay, that's okay.
I would say, yeah, his
Counselor.
guidance counselor, it comes up in their guidance groups, right? But there's a lot of other stuff that the guidance groups tackle as well. So yes, they are hearing this, but it is not as if, that there's, like you have to do, right? There's no check box that every student has to do and that we are making sure that they do, right? So we offer these things, we encourage them to do them, but, at the end of the day, if he's not doing it, I think a friend, like kind of getting his friends, getting.
It's just helpful if it's coming from other
Sure.
people too.
Right. I mean,
Maybe coach. Coach has usually got a very persuasive way about him, whoever coach is. That can help. And then, what are their peers doing? Because
Friends.
honestly, they'll find themselves sitting on the couch looking to play Fortnite with someone and no one's online because they're out living life, That's a bad feeling. You just don't want to have to find yourself stuck in that feeling,
we had a question.
Yeah, I had a question about you mentioned somewhere junior PSAT score is considered for the National Merit Scholarship. Is that the same for ACT, if they're at ACT equivalent? And also, what is the National Merit Scholarship?
Sorry, I think I skipped that point, I'm sorry. So the National Merit Scholarship is basically all the students nationally who are taking the junior PSAT, the very top percentage of scorers on that will be in the running for this National Merit Scholarship. There are different levels of finalist and semifinalist. Basically, so it's based on that score. The colleges don't get that score, but if you get that designation, you will send that to the colleges you apply to and let them know that you've been deemed that your PSAT score was in this very top bracket. Usually, like if the sophomore PSAT score came in where it says, because it gives you a percentage, a percentile as compared to other sophomores who took the PSAT, that's on the score report. If your son is scoring in the 90% range, that could mean that by next year when he takes it as a junior, that he might kind of be in that possible range to score in the top two, like 1 to 2% of students taking it. We kind of give it, like if you're in that 90%, then maybe, usually we don't recommend that juniors do any kind of test prep for PSAT. It's just a practice and it's like a scrimmage. So save your test prep dollars for later, unless your sophomore son for the PSAT was scoring in like the 90th, maybe 95th percentile as compared nationally to other sophomores. That's maybe when some test prep dollars could go before the junior PSAT for the chance of maybe getting in that very top bracket. Some colleges, actually a lot of colleges, if you have that designation, like we have a student who's a national Hispanic scholar who has got a full ride to Fordham. So colleges will acknowledge that designation with a lot of tuition dollars, maybe full tuition, half tuition, something like that.
Colleges, like you'll see when they publish their incoming class statistics, we had such and such many national merit scholars, Hispanic us. It's a nice designation to be able to send. The Khan Academy, as part of the College Board website, I guess, which is huge. When you get your PSAT results and you log in, they offer you an option to link your scores to the Khan Academy, which would gear specific test prep to you based on your scores. Free. And we had a kid who was a finalist for National Merit Scholarship a few years ago. He would tell anybody who would listen that all he did was use the Khan Academy, and
There's
got where he was going.
no equivalent for the ACT, for the merit scholarship.
What number of colleges do you recommend looking to apply? I know, we have friends at Regis that are only allowed to apply to 4 schools as a result. So I was just curious.
Our average is, last year's average was 11. So we're generally in like that 8 to 12 range. It used to be 8 to 10, I'm kind of bumping it now to 8 to 12. It is different for every student, there's no magic number. We do not cap our students on how many schools that they can apply to. We do highly encourage them to bring that number down when it starts to get 12, 13, 15. I mean, I have a student who's applying to 25. Like, we've had 32, what's your highest?
37. Go to one.
You can only go to one. Paid for 37 application fees, right? But, so we encourage that mainly because the amount of decision making, he's gonna get into a lot of this. Like, the decision making time on the back end is overwhelming when they get into so many schools. So we really encourage the guys to do, and the families to do the research on the front end as much as you can. It's hard, they don't always know what they want. They figure things out as they go, for sure, but we really encourage that list to get in that 8 to 12 sweet spot, we think.
And has it been streamlined? Is it one application? Is it that one essay for all of those?
Mostly. There's the Common App, there's the Coalition app, CUNY has its own app.
And more selective schools tend to have a supplemental essay in addition to the one essay you mentioned. So the more selective schools tend to have some additional time involved in the application too. But for the most part, students are doing 1, maybe 2 different types of applications with a couple additional supplemental essays. So it's pretty streamlined.
Regis is operating in a very different plane than we are, different population. And they have to do that for good reasons, I guess you would say.
Or being recorded.
So in terms of the honors class, I have a sophomore, so I know that he was eligible, he went into an honors class this year, and it's a lot harder, and he's working away at it.
late February, early March, they're gonna get that packet. So freshmen haven't seen this yet, but your sons will get a whole packet of all the courses that are available to them the next year. In the course descriptions, there will be a prerequisite to get into the class. So if you're in the honors class to go into the next level, if it's an AP is the next level, then generally you have to look exactly what it says in the course description, but it's like if you're in the mid-80s and you have a teacher, your teacher basically is recommending that you continue, you'll go, and you want to, and you apply for that class, you'll go into the class. If you're not in the honors and you're in the regular college prep and you're applying into an honors or into an AP, then the prerequisite's generally around a low 90, with the teachers kind of blessing that they think that you're, and they do also look at the overall transcript. But if there's any questions about that, the guidance counselors or your student's teacher in that particular subject could kind of give you a sense if they're not on track to continue in that path, or Mr. Lavallo is always the one to talk to with that. Yeah, okay.
Just quickly, where would we actually be delivering the pieces? I was Sophomore, first I don't know where.
That's okay. That's okay.
Not uncommon.
College board, ask him for his college board account.
Oh, he's got a
It should be his school login. We encourage all of them to use their same Xavier email login and password for everything until they leave here. It's probably going to be their password for life.
A detailed score report that you can download and gives you ways to sort of analyze strengths and weaknesses. Yeah, it's useful.
Thank you.
First of all, thank you for my senior daughter, who in high school out on her own, and if I had this information 3 years ago, my whole life would have been different.
Oh, drop the mic, and we're done.
One thing, a lot of the students saying are test optional, but do they require the test if you want to be considered for merit scholarship?
Very good question.
I would say for their general merit scholarships, they do not, most of them, I will say most of them do not require that you submit test scores to be considered for their general merit scholarships. If they have scholarships that you have to apply for, so some colleges may have these even more specified scholarships that you have to actually submit an essay for, or it has to do with a particular topic or something. Those scholarships may require that you have testing along with it. That's like the moral of everything. You have to check every school because they can have differences. Some schools, if they are test optional, may have a program within the college that does require testing. A lot of the engineering or the nursing programs are always going to require some testing, even if the college is test optional. And check the schools, not everywhere, but I have seen those programs specifically are requiring testing. But most schools, if they are test optional, their general scholarship dollars are open to students who are not submitting test scores too.
And if your son is thinking about playing Division I sport, they'll always require test scores. Test scores will always require. We have a ton of D1 guys. We have a good number, but that's a conversation to have with the council.
In the back, and then we'll come up front. Okay, sir.
With respect to students who are not sports oriented or medically exempt from sports, what advice do you get? What advice do you give them to cover for that deficiency?
Sure. To make up for that maybe lacking piece of the app, you're saying like you're worried that there's going to be a missing piece in his application because he's not involved in athletics. I would say don't worry about that and just encourage him to get involved in other areas of the school. And it sounds like if there is a situation like that where he's unable to play sports, the guidance counselor would know that. And that's something that we can maybe elaborate in a letter of recommendation, and that way we can then tell the story and say that, look, he wasn't able to play sports, but he involved himself in these other activities and he excelled here and there. So I wouldn't be too focused on that. I think just encourage him to get involved in other things. So.
And as Tom said, it doesn't have to be here at Xavier. So in your community, in your parish, we have so many students who are in Boy Scouts, for the full range. Or they're in theater groups outside. I mean, there's so many other things to do. So if it's not at Xavier, that's okay too. Just continuing, just doing something that he enjoys. It's not sitting on the couch at home every day, you know, which actually, that even being said, we encourage the guys on their applications, if you are teaching yourself how to code, or you're doing art at home, and you have a hobby that you actually regularly spend time on, that's not just playing video games, but like actually doing something or teaching yourself something, or, you know, just doing things with friends that's actually kind of developing a hobby, you put that on the application too. Like if you're regularly drawing at home and that's a hobby and a skill that you are actually continuing, like it doesn't have to be a formalized go to a place and do it. So, you know, just encouraging all of them to just continue doing what interests them, where they find the energy and the passion. I mean, that's what they want. That's what the colleges want. I know it's hyped up to be like, you have to do volunteer work, you have to do athletics, you have to do this, you have to do this. They're not looking for like all these boxes that are checked. They want to know, it's kind of what Molly's saying, that there's this story of growth and development, of interest, of excitement, of, you know, that they're trying to figure out what they want to do and be. And that can come from so many different places in different ways. And so that's kind of what our job is, to coach them through how do they put those pieces together and kind of tell that story.
And at the end of the day, they don't want, you know, 1,000 student athletes in their class. They're looking to build a well-rounded class, and I think that's a really exciting part of our job, is that no student is the same, and we get to really help them, you know, bring their strengths into the application process, and colleges really see that and build a dynamic, unique class on their college campuses. So that was a good question.
One different thing about video games, we do a lot of video game bashing.
I know.
Our esports team has been doing very well,
Yeah.
very well on a national level. That's different. That's actually considered by some colleges as a legitimate activity and endeavor that, yeah, you're part of a team, you're winning $3 million as a 16-year-old, whatever. I was at a meeting at St. Joe's University in the winter, and they asked, with a bunch of college counselors, and they asked us, should we start an esports team? And the answer was universally, yeah. Like I hadn't really thought about it before. I'm like, yeah, that's a thing. We're not going to encourage your sons to play video games. Laura's looking at me like, I'm going to kill this guy. But if that's something that they've pursued in a formal way here, I don't know if there's other things, but I guess there are, maybe it's not so bad. That's going to be a rarity, but it might be something.
Did you still have a question?
Yes, I'm curious if the guidance department reviews the recommendation of the teachers to make sure that both recommendations together have full.
Yes, absolutely. So we do screen those before we send them out. While the teachers are writing them and they sort of upload them to our system, we are the ones who are sending them out. So everything that we send out to a college on a student's behalf is definitely screened or evaluated by us. Yeah, and if there were any, are you going to say that you've never had a problem with the teacher recommendation? Or I would say for the most part, the
I won't say
teachers.
that, but I think we've gotten to a point where we get to know your son, we get to know what he's interested in, and we know who would be a good person to match him with the rest.
We do
They
trainings
usually
with
get
the
that right
teachers.
themselves, but you know, if we need to steer, we will steer.
And we do trainings with the teachers, like there's always new teachers, new faculty that come on board, and every year we kind of do like a refresher. We had at the beginning of this year in our faculty intro meetings, we had a presentation from this woman from Columbia to come talk about teacher letters of recommendation. So, we're always trying to just like refresh, there's always new teachers, we need refreshers, like we try and bring in people from the colleges all the time, not just to kind of get up to speed with any new changes, but to kind of bring whatever the faculty need to know or our guidance counselors need to know. So we're kind of bringing that in a lot. I think there was a question back here, yeah.
Yeah, what if your son is interested in applying to a college outside of the United States?
Great. We've got a lot of students who are applying internationally. We work with them to figure out, the timeline. It's so different, like every school internationally, every area, and then like what they're kind of, if they're a U.S. student who's applying internationally, or if they have any other citizenship and how that works. But yes, we have many students who apply internationally.
And
go and do college in 3 years and pay less. It's amazing. But there's actually some international fairs in New York, so a lot of times we'll get that information and we'll kind of share that too, so you can get, and actually we do have a handful of international schools, so we didn't mention this in the presentation, but we have colleges come visit to meet with our juniors in the spring, and then college reps will come in fall of senior year. So we do have representatives from some colleges internationally come here to Xavier to meet with our guys. So.
Some of them, like UC Dublin has a rep based a couple blocks away, Trinity College, they have a rep from University of Toronto, it comes almost every year, McGill.
Yeah. In the back, we got one in the back. Oh, this guy. Sorry. Hold on.
So do the freshmen and the sophomores get some form of this presentation so they see, the 5 parts in a long-term view? It doesn't have to be in this much detail.
In this much detail, no. We've done it before. We're planning to do it for the we were just talking about this to do it for the sophomores. They get bits of this through their guidance group, right? But it's not as kind of on this kind of all together massive level. We're always trying to balance them being in high school, right? Them being focused on what they're doing here and their classes and enjoying themselves and living the high school life, right? And so there's this balance between how much information when to not have anxiety grow, or does it cause anxiety, right? Like, so we're always trying to balance that out. And so yes, we have been talking about doing something for the sophomores like this. So hopefully that will happen in the next couple months. Oh, yeah. Are you together?
I have a quick question. I was a little bit late for the ACT questions. So just to recap, certain schools don't only require one test anymore as they did a long time ago. That was A. B, do you recommend doing the writing portion of the SAT or ACT? And do you recommend both? One. And then on a completely separate third question is, for the summer activities for the kids, do you guys keep a list, an office, or something that allows kids to kind of reach out to figure out, hey, I'm interested in engineering or science or whatever. These are programs or options that are out there in the city or
Yeah. I'll talk to the SAT stuff. So every college will take either SAT or ACT, so either one. The SAT with writing or the ACT with writing. So most colleges, it's actually kind of shifting. Some colleges require it with the writing. They want to see at least, they'll super score still, but they want to see the writing somewhere in there. And now many colleges are like dropping the writing again. The writing section does not go into the 2 sections of 600. Okay, it's this like third little score. It's an essay where they're actually like, writing an essay. But many schools now are saying that is not required. So we used to always just say, take it at least once with the writing, just to cover your bases for whatever schools are still requiring it. It's not that much time, and honestly, for our guys, writing this essay is like so easy. It doesn't become a big deal. I don't think they look that closely at it. Same thing with the ACT. I would take it once just to have the writing score on there, but then don't worry too much about it. We're going to talk about
and for summer programs, it could either happen 2 ways. So we do regularly like blast opportunities out that we are made aware of. And we share that over email, or sometimes we'll put in the announcements. But then the other way would be for the student to come into our office and, like you said, mention, hey, I'm interested in doing this summer, do you know of a program? And then we would work with them that way. So either they can get the information and take it from there, or they can come in and we can, guide them. And we do have like a database or a spreadsheet of all this. Yeah.
On the college website, there's a summer opportunities link on the college page. So I've posted a bunch of them there. We get so many of these. But I've put a lot up there, so I would start there on the college page, summer opportunities. And then secondly, like most colleges over the summer, they need to make money off their dorms. So they offer all these summer programs for high school students. And they could be like a week in engineering, a week in, all sorts of programs at every single college for every single type of interest. So if that is something, and just keep in mind that doing a program at a college over the summer that you just pay for does not increase your chances of being admitted to that college. It is purely a great experience for your child, and it's where you've chosen to put your resources. If there's a college program where your son has to apply for it and submit an essay and potentially PSAT scores and potentially a reference from a teacher, like a teacher rec, or another rec, or potentially even their transcript. So something that they're actually applying for at a college, where they could actually not get in, or they could get in, something selective like that, that could have, that could carry weight in the college admissions review process. So, like, there's the programs at Notre Dame, you have to apply for them, they're highly selective. If you get one of these summer opportunities, and you put that on your resume, and whether you, especially if you apply to Notre Dame, or if you apply to other places, they're gonna know that program is highly selective.
Yeah, I think apply versus register is sort of like the key word.
Apply versus just pay. You're paying both ways, but like, one, you've been chosen to pay.
In the mail, you may get something that looks great, shiny, with embossed seals and glitter and gold. If you have a question about it, just have them bring it to us. I don't know, you paid for this, it's okay, it's not a scam, but you don't need a bumper sticker that's in gold and black that says your son is a National Honor Student in the Society of Scholars. That's not going to do anything for you. You can have a nice bumper sticker for $75.
Thank you.
Sure.
I'll
Yes.
this one last question.
I have a son who doesn't have a shot in hell in getting into the honors or AP, but he loves engineering. Does that really limit college?
No,
There are
Like,
so
is he
many,
doing the best he can?
That's
but
right.
it's-
absolutely. Yep.
there are so many schools out there that have engineering programs for students at C level, B level, B plus level, A plus, yes.
I will be supporting him the rest of my life.
You will not be. You know what? Not at all. Not at all.
They may also offer you a merit-based scholarship. No, seriously,
Catholic
They exist.
University has an amazing engineering program. They will take B minus, B level engineering students, like students come, I mean, and they do amazing.
Clarkson.
Like, there's so many
Oh,
schools,
yeah, absolutely.
there's so many schools out there. That's
You
what the most exciting and the most difficult part of this whole process. There's so many out there.
So many. They will give you money too. They exist, and they're good places, you know.
All right, I think everybody's done. Thanks for coming, everybody. Good night.
That's all a good question. You're not alone.